Now you became familiar with the most important resume rules, it's time to start writing. Attached to this lecture is an example of a traditional resume, the most popular and widely used type of resume, also known as the reverse chronological resume, which means you always list your most recent position first. In this lecture, you'll learn how to create it. Right now, you'll write a long resume that consists almost everything you've done in your life, and later in section 4, when you're applying for a position, you'll tweak your resume and delete all irrelevant information to make sure your resume is short and sweet. Everything you learned during the self-analysis section can be now implemented into your resume. You will show who you are and what you're good at by describing your achievements. On the right, you see the most important headlines to include in your resume: a profile, education, work experience, extracurricular activities, and key skills and knowledge. A general rule when it comes to resume writing is always start with the most important information. This is what a recruiter definitely should not miss. As a graduate, education is probably a more important part of your resume compared to your work experience, so it's probably better to start with the education. Think about what you achieved in your life and steadily complete all the sections. If you already have a resume that looks a lot like this, make sure you implement all the tips and tricks provided. Let's look at the 7 steps of writing your resume. The first thing you can do is adding your headline and the titles of the different sections. In the headline, you include your name, address, phone number, and professional email address in that order. Some companies use software programs to process resumes. That's why the order is important. Your name is the most important piece of information, so give it some extra space. As a professional email address, you could use your email from university, if you still use it. Next, you complete all the different sections, and after that, you can write your profile. First, complete the education section. As for every upcoming session, think of everything you achieved. Academic achievements are, for example, a high grade point average or writing an interesting thesis. For graduates, most of their achievements will probably be in this section. Write in reverse chronological order, so start with your most recent study, since it's the most important. With a maximum of 3 bullet points, you can show your most important accomplishments, for example, a GPA of 3 or higher, certain awards, training, or minors. Using bullet points makes it very clear for the recruiter what you have done. After education, you can list your work experience. Again, in bold, write the most important information, which is the name of the position. Spend time on your bullet points and start with the most important. The extracurricular activities section is important for graduates. It's a place to showcase what you did besides studying. This of course tells the recruiter a lot about you. Are you an active volunteer? Do you have any leadership potential? Did you travel the world for a year? You could also include semi-professional sports experience here if it proves you possess certain skills. So think about whether you worked at your local sports club, planned events, or did something interesting at a student association. Mention everything in this section. Again, showcase your achievements in bullet points. In the last section, key skills and knowledge, you can present additional information, like language proficiency. Anything you're good at or know much about can be included here if you haven't proven these skills in the sections above. When adding skills and knowledge, the most important thing to consider is whether the information is relevant or not. For now, you can create a long list, and when you're applying for a specific position, you will delete all irrelevant info. When you're happy with these key sections, you can start with completing the last section, your profile or summary, probably the most difficult section. You can use this section to personalize your resume and highlight important information. In 3 or 4 sentences, explain who you are, what you're good at, and what you want. This is exactly what you did in the self-analysis section. An important goal of the profile is to entice hiring managers to read the rest of your resume. That is, where possible, why you should mention your unique personality, your unique combination of skills, qualities, and experience. Now your basic life history is on paper. Maybe you forget to mention important information. Look back at the tests you completed in the first section, self-analysis. Did you showcase all core qualities and achievements from what are you good at? Adjust your resume until it really characterizes who you are and showcases your strength. Now you're almost done. In step 5, you'll spend time on the look of your resume to make it more unique and add your personal flavor. How you should design your resume depends on the industry you're in. If you're in a more creative industry, you can create a more creative resume. When designing your resume, keep 2 things in mind. Your resume should be easy to scan, and the most important information should be easy to find. Use a bigger font size for important information, and at the same time, be consistent. Using a picture on your resume depends on the position, industry, and where you live. When the job requires you to interact with customers, for example, it is important that you look representative, and adding a photo could be relevant. Check with others if they're using a photo or not. If you do use a photo, make sure it's a professional one. In step 6, you will critically look at your resume like you're a recruiter. Print your resume and scan it for a maximum of 30 seconds. Is your resume clear, persuasive, and consistent? Does it communicate who you are? Critically review everything and correct. When you're proud of the document you created, you can move to the final step. In step 7, you'll ask for feedback, which is a very important step. Ask people you know whether they find your resume engaging, whether it's clear what you're trying to prove or showcase, and whether they like the design. Implementing feedback will bring your resume to the next level. Now, the first thing you can do is follow the 7 steps just as discussed. Pay attention to details and create a unique document. When you're done, don't save the document as a PDF yet, so that you can adjust it later when applying. The next lecture is about the basics of LinkedIn. If you're already quite familiar with LinkedIn, you can skip this lecture.